Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Sunday Gita class with some Gita verses. Om Pathaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritvarshini Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayani Amutvam Anusandhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini Namo Astute Vyas Vishal Bunde फुल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारत तैल पूर्णा प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान में प्रदीपा पर पान पारी जाता आये तो द्रवेत्र एक पान है ज्ञान मुद्रा एक कृष्णाय गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव वसुतम देवम कंस चानूर मर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ जला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्राहवती कृपेन वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तनी सो तीर्णा खलु पांडवई रन नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलम गीता अर्थगंधोटकम नाना ख्यानक केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदे रह पे मानम उदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत्कृपातमह वंदे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यस्तवे वेदै सांगपद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थि तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुषुर असुर गणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. In chapter 12 Bhakti Yoga, we are learning what kind of qualities we need to cultivate to become a Bhagat. That Bhagat means a lover of God and God only. But for that also we need to have some qualities though. Okay. So altogether there are about 36 qualities Lord Krishna has mentioned in this chapter. We have gone through quite a few of those. In the last two verses, 18 and 19, few more qualities is enumerating. Let's look at these also. Sama shatra ucha mitrecha tatha man apamanyo sheet ushna sukh dukeshu samusang vivarchita. Then verse number 19. Tulya ninda stuti moni santushtaha yen ken chit aniketa sthirmati bhakti man me priya nara. Some means the same. That means who is the same? Shatru to enemy. Cha means and, mitre to friend. Cha means and, tatha means also. Man apamanyo, in honor and dishonor. Sheet ushna sukh dukheshu, in cold and heat, in pleasure and pain. Samaha, the same. Sang vivarjita, free from attachment. So this is verse number 18. He says, he who is the same to enemy and friend. Also in honor and dishonor. Who is the same in cold and heat, and in pleasure and pain. Who is free from attachment. Continuation of this in verse number 19. Tulya ninda stuti. To whom insult or praise are equal. Moni, silent. Santushtaha, content. Yen ken chit, with anything. Aniketaha. See, Niketan means a home. Aniket means homeless. No home. Sthirmati, steady-minded. Bhakti man, full of devotion. Me means to me, Priya means dear, Nara means that person. to whom insult and praise are equal, who is silent, content with anything, homeless, steady-minded, full of devotion. That person is dear to me. Let's look at all these words. What does it really mean? Equal to enemy and friend. We all know the estimation of our relationship with another as enemy or friend is generally our psychological reaction towards that person. It belongs essentially to the heart. So it is experienced by the psychological being in us. But a man of perfection, a devotee, who is not identifying himself with his mental estimation of things, so his mind is equanimous. So he is keeping a uniformity of attitude towards his friends and enemies. So that doesn't mean that his actions will be same, but his mind will be at peace. Okay, the relationships with the enemies will be different than the relationship with the friends. But the mind will be still and calm, even in the presence of the enemies. Arjun is surrounded by the enemies over there. That's why Lord Krishna is telling him this. Most of us don't have enemies like that. We are not in a war zone. It should be easier for us to keep our mind more peaceful. The same kind of attitude to everybody. Honor and dishonor. Constantly we judge our situation by the intellect, that whether we are being honored or dishonored. So it is with reference to our own existing values or even cultivated habits of thinking. So these are also like a different tides in the intellect. So if we get affected by these ties, then we are not a Bhagat yet. A true devotee is one who stays in the spirit and watches the intellect. That means always, apart from the intellect can have many storms. But devotee will keep and maintain the equanimity, sambuddhi, who is same in heat and cold and in pleasure and pain. We all know heat and cold, they are experiences of the body. So heat and cold affect only the body, not the rest of the personality. Take proper action, but why get disturbed? That's what he's trying to tell us. So keep your mind steady. Who is free from attachment? Attachment to and identification with the body, mind, intellect is the cause by which we are helplessly made to dance to the mad tunes, which are because of the happenings outside. A person who's detached from these equipments, as they say, or the layers of our personality, is the person who is master of them all. Body can go through sickness, still being peaceful. It could be a painful experience or pleasurable, still steadiness of the mind. This is what Bhagat is. To whom insult and praise are equal, It's not that the person is immune to insults. And it's not because he's not intelligent enough to understand them. But to a great devotee, the world's or the worldly insults or even praise has no significance or importance at all. He realizes that one who has been praised today will be insulted tomorrow. And yesterday's insult can become a praiseworthy leader of today. They keep on changing. So praise and insult are in themselves nothing more than the passing fancies of those people who express them. He is silent. Does it mean that he doesn't speak? This is a mental silence. Sure, he speaks, but speaks what needs to be spoken. The correct word, the honest words, the measured words, not just useless chattering, but internally the mind is silent. That's what maun means. It's a real silence. In Bhagavad is that. Because whenever there is a churning in our thoughts, we cannot see the divinity. We are just staying away from the divinity. So Moni, content with anything. That's another qualification. We know that life has many demands. If we keep on increasing those demands, they are unending. Because mind has a knack of breeding its own demands very fast. We want something before we know we want something else. We want to go somewhere. Before we go, we already got a plan to go somewhere else. Those are the demands of the mind. So the policy of contentment is the only intelligent attitude to be taken up by all sincere devotees. Otherwise, this diviner goal, which is God, cannot reach. There is a famous couplet by Saint Kabir. मालिक इतना दीजिए जा में कुटुंब समाए, मैं भी भूखा ना रहूं, साधु न भूखा जाए. So the needs of the devotees shrink to the bare necessities for maintaining the body. That's what it means. Nothing more. Homeless. What does it mean? Live in this world as a traveler lives in an inn. We all know home is that which provides shelter from the external situation like weather. It's like a roof on the top of our head. A devotee understands. It's just a place of residence. I don't own it. So this is his mental condition is indicated by this simple term homeless. Okay, he has a home, he lives in a home, but he doesn't think that I own it. Because in reality, we don't own anything. We don't even own this body. We are just a traveler in it. So he is steadfast in his intellectual understanding of the goal, always striving to attain his divine ideal. So Bhagat dwells on that. And Lord Krishna says, that person is dear to me. There's almost a suggestion, even though by implication, that a person who is at least striving to live these values is a full-grown man. Nar. Nar means a full-grown man. And man doesn't mean a gender man. It's like a human being. So over here, we saw in all these verses a complete picture of the seeker of perfection. Relationship, the world outside, his psychological life, his intellectual evaluation of the world of beings and happenings. This is what we saw. There's an enumeration of the various moral, ethical, spiritual qualities. That's what we saw. And that's what I was telling you last time. In your own hands, write them down. Grade yourself. There you are. Because these qualifications are given by Lord Krishna himself. God incarnate, Yogeshwar. We worship him. We sing bhajans in his glory. But we got to look at through all this. What does he want us to do? Nowhere he said just to sing my bhajans only. He did not say that who just keeps on singing and chanting my name all the time is very dear to me. Look at it. He's telling us to cultivate these qualities. Altogether, these are 36. So please write them down and see what he's telling us. And in the last verse, verse number 20, he is concluding all this for us. Ye tu dharam amritam idam yatha uktam pari upasate shraddhana mat par mahabhakta te ativ me priya. Ye means who? Tu means indeed. Dharma amritam, immortal dharam. Amrit is immortal. Dharam. Idam means this, yatha means as, uktam declared. Paryupasate follows. Shraddhana, endued with faith. Mat parmaha, regarding me as their supreme. Bhakta, devotee. Te means they. Ativ, exceedingly. Me, to me, priya, dear. They indeed, who follow this immortal dharam, as described above. So if somebody asks you, what is a dharam? These qualities, that is dharam. These 36 qualities, that's an immortal dharam for a human being. He did not use any sect, any place. He just used these universal qualities we need to cultivate. So that's why this is an immortal dharam. So they indeed who follow this immortal dharam as described above, endowed with faith, regarding me as their supreme goal, such devotees are exceedingly dear to me. He has been saying dear, now he says exceedingly dear. So that's why it's called a Sanatan Dharma. So it has been summarized in these few lines. To realize the self and live in that wisdom at all our personality levels. What are the personality level? Physical, mental, and intellectual. Those are the personality levels. Is the fulfillment of life. Hare Bhagat. It's not sufficient that we read the scriptures every day. Sure, we need to read the scriptures to know all this. But we must be able to digest them properly, assimilate the knowledge fully, and ultimately become perfect. So that's why Lord Krishna is saying, endowed with faith. Faith really means over here the necessary capacity to assimilate spiritual ideas into ourselves through the subjective personal experience. Not just somebody else's experience, it should be our experience. We have to live Gita. But how will we know how to live Gita if we don't even study it? So that's why study is important. But then reflection is important. Then practice is even more important. So such devotees are supremely dear to me. This last verse forms almost like a commandment. Also a divine reassurance to all the spiritual seekers. Because sometimes we wonder, I'm doing all this, doing my sadhana. What does it really mean? God himself says, you are exceedingly dear to me. We do a lot of things in the world to attain praise, to get accepted. Over here, God himself is accepting us. He says, you are exceedingly dear to me if you do this. When you accomplish these qualities, you will gain the supreme love of God himself. To me, this is enough. It's a reassurance. God is committing to us. So now we have to do our part. So now you can see, according to Bhagavad Gita, the path of devotion is not just a mere sentimental explosion or excessive emotional display or just saying that, my God, my God. No, we don't have to utter the word God. Our character should show. Our lives should show. Our decisions should show. It is the blossoming of the human personality through the surrender of our limitations. And that's how we acquire vitality during the inspired moments of contemplation. This is Lord Krishna is telling us. Bloom, bloom beautifully. And have a fragrance, godly, divine fragrance, which will spread far and far. So this is the end of this chapter. So next chapter is Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yog. That's chapter 13. We all know that there are 3 sets of 6 chapters. So this is the last of the 6 chapters. And in these 6 chapters, see, just like in the first 6 chapters, mainly it was Karam, the action, then Karam Yoga. Then second 6 chapters, from chapter 7 to 12, Bhakti, the devotion. It ended with a Bhakti Yog. And the last one is about Gyan. Tattva Gyan. As a farmer sows seeds in a field and reaps the harvest from it, we sow the field of our body with good and bad thoughts and actions and reap the consequent destiny. Field. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts and it made of our thoughts. That's why Emerson said, the ancestor of every action is thought. We must learn the art of cultivating the field of our body with appropriate thoughts and actions. This requires knowledge. Knowledge of the distinction between the field and the knower of the field. What part in us is thinking and what part in us is acting? Because if thoughts are the parent of the actions, we got to know the distinction. So in this chapter, we'll see that Lord Krishna goes into a detailed analysis of this distinction. Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yog. Kshetra is the field, Kshetrajna is the knower of the field. So distinction between these two. Let's start with the Arjun's question. In some of the books, Arjun's question is not there. Somehow it just, even the books which you have, Arjun's question is not there. It just starts out with the Lord Krishna's answer. So what I am going to tell you what Arjun's question was. Prakritim purusham cha eva kshetram kshetragyam eva cha etat veditum ichhami jnanam geyam cha keshava. Prakritim, the prakriti, purusham, the soul. Cha means and, ev means also. Kshetram, the field. Kshetragyam, the knower of the field. Ev means even, cha means and. Etat, this. Veditvam, to know. Ichhami, I wish. Jnanam is the knowledge, geyam, what ought to be known. Cha means and, keshav means Krishna. Prakriti and Purush, also the field and the knower of the field. Knowledge and that which ought to be known. These I wish to learn, O Keshav. Now we know what Prakriti is. We have been talking about it. Prakriti is the matter. Purush is the spirit. If you can remember this much, that will help to understand Lord Krishna's answers in this chapter. The spirit in itself, or the soul in itself, has no expression except when it plays through matter or Prakriti. It's almost the saints, they say the Purush weds Prakriti. The experiences of good and bad are born there. Only when there is a union between these two. So when the Purush weds Prakriti, the experiences of the good and bad are born. It's almost like we can see the electricity in itself cannot manifest as light. We need the electricity, the power, and the bulb also connected with it. Bulb alone cannot do anything. Electricity alone cannot do anything to give us light. Wedding of these two is needed. So when electricity wets the bulb, it is manifested as light. You can say that. And the field and the knower of the field. The knower of the field is the status of the knowing. Principle when it is functioning in the field of the known. And then there's the mechanism and the object of knowledge. So mechanism of knowing and its manipulations and the true object to be known. So Arjun says to Lord Krishna, I need to know this. So this is the theme of this chapter. Let's look at one more verse. Lord Krishna says, Idam shariram kauntya kshetram iti abhidhiyate etat yaveti tam prahu kshetrajna iti tadvida. Idam means this. Shariram means body. Kauntya, Arjuna. Kshetram, the field. Iti means thus, abhidhiyate is called. Etat, this, ya means who, veti knows, tam means him, prahu, called, kshetrajna, the knower of the field. Iti means thus, tadvida, the knower of that. So Lord Krishna said, this body, O Kauntya, O Arjuna, is called the Kshetra. And he who knows it is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. By those, who said that? He said, by those who know them. That means who had the subjective knowledge of the Kshetra and Kshetrajna both. That means the sages. They discerned the truth about both. They could see it distinctly. Who is recognizing that this is the body? So the experience of perfection is subjective. And a subjective quest is the path to rediscover and ultimately realize the self. So these sages, they realized it. So this terminology Lord Krishna is saying that has been given by these self-realized sages who were transcendently situated at the platform of the soul, Kshetrajna. That's how they perceived their distinct identity separate from the body. They could see it very clearly. I am not the body and I am seeing it. So he who knows it is called the knower of the field. Principle of knowing, functioning in the field is the knower. So this discriminative knowledge of the matter layers or the layers of the Prakriti, distinct from the spiritual core, if you want to call it the soul, will show us if we can do this, if we can rediscover it. So philosophically, when we look at it, there are two aspects in us. There's an inert aspect, which is the matter layers, Prakriti, and then there's a vital consciousness, which is the soul. We are made up of these two. So this inert part of us is called the field. In this field, the energy plays, energy of the soul. So the equipments or the assembly of these matter layers through which life passes, when an individuality is expressed, are defined here by the Lord Krishna as the field. And as long as life exists in any living organism, it expresses the urge to know. We want to know. Even a little child, how many questions when he starts to speak? What is this? What and why? It becomes so much part of that little child's terminology. The urge to know expressed through an equipment is what recognizes as its life. So when this knower, the individuality, has departed from the equipment, we consider it dead. That's what inert is. Okay, so soul is the Kshetrajna and the body is the Kshetra. So over here in this beautiful verse, we have a definition of Kshetra, the matter, and the Kshetrajna, the spirit functioning through it. So the entire world of objects constitute the kingdom of matter and the vital knower, the world of matter. It's like a wedding between these two. So the soul is only the knower of the individual field of its body, idam shariram. This is what we'll learn in the next verse. So soul, the individualized Atma, knows this body. And then the God is the knower of the field of all the souls. This distinction we should keep in mind. Sometimes we think we have become God with this knowledge. No. We got to let go of our identity to become one with God. So the soul is only the knower of the individual field of its own body. God is the knower of the fields of all the souls, being situated as the supreme soul in the heart of all living beings. Remember that distinction. Okay, we'll stop it here with the Shanti Path. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.